Hi, good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to the final Spring 2022 BUSSW E&I Speakers Series event, co-sponsored with our macro department called Nearing the Abolitionist Horizon via Professionalized Social Change Work with Dr. Sophia Sarantakos. My name is Noor Taref. I'm a doctoral candidate at Boston University School of Social Work, and I work with our BUSSW E&I committee, which includes representation from all members of our community, faculty, staff, students, administrators, and alumni. The committee has been around for many years, engaging in the work of building equity, inclusion, and justice here at BUSSW, as well as amplifying social justice-focused activities here in the community. Some of the work we have engaged in includes organizing social justice learning communities, creating social justice focused case consultations, partnering with different departments around social justice focused interventions, student support, and solidarity circles, and a field department social justice seminar. We also have a wonderful resource page. It's available to everyone. And it includes podcasts, peer-reviewed literature, and media articles that I encourage you to check out and share. And we just have completed a 3-hour online module on structural and institutional racism that is also now available to anyone in the world for free through our network for professional education, which you can access this resource and many others on our equity and inclusion webpage. So I'm going to start briefly with a review of our format today. First, I will introduce Dr. Sarantakos, and they will present for about 30 minutes. Then we'll have 3 members of our BUSSW community offer a 1 to 2 minute reflection about the talk and ask Dr. Sarantakos a question. And then finally, we'll be able to answer a few questions from our audience today that you can type into the chat throughout the presentation. So just a quick review of a few Zoom and housekeeping items. Anyone who's receiving CEUs will need to keep their camera on during the entire session today. If you are not receiving CEUs, we recommend still turning off your cameras during the talk. And if you are receiving CEUs, you will need to complete the evaluation form. We'll type the link in the chat at the end of the presentation. We also suggest having your Zoom setting on speaker's view. We'll be recording the presentation, so if you aren't comfortable being recorded and you aren't receiving CEUs, please keep your cameras off during the entire event. And we will be posting this recording later on our E&I Speaker Series page a few days after the talk. All of the participants will be muted during the presentation. And please don't use the chat during the presentation, as sometimes that can be distracting, but you can put in questions afterwards. Closed captioning is available for the presentation. So to use the closed captions, you need to click on the closed caption button and choose show subtitle for the captions to overlay on the screen. And then finally, it goes without saying that all comments in the chat should be respectful and mindful of our entire BUSSW community. So before we start with the presentation today, we would just like to begin with a land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement reminds us all that colonization is an enduring reality and that Boston University sits on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts people. If you are outside of Boston, take some time to learn about the tribal lands where you live and the ongoing movements to have land honored, acknowledged, and returned. These past 2 years, we have witnessed the cruel outcomes of our current social, political, and economic systems, with COVID-19 unmasking the devastating long-term effects of anti-Asian violence, gender inequality, racial capitalism, ableism, and mass incarceration. The timing of Dr. Sarantakos' presentation couldn't be more appropriate for our historical moment, where we as social workers, part of our world community, really stand at a crossroads. The convergence of the COVID-19 pandemic with the enduring issue of racist hate violence has thrust the word abolition into the arena of professionalized US social work, more so in the past 2 years than in any other times. Although social change workers with an abolitionist politic are not a new phenomenon, discussions on the need for and potential and friction of abolitionist social work have increased dramatically since 2020. If professionalized social work is to shift to an abolitionist praxis, this work can only be done collectively. To that end, this talk will offer thoughts, not answers, as Dr. Joy James would say. In this presentation, the speaker will ground the audience in the definition and core tenets of prison industrial complex abolition, query the profession's stated values through an abolitionist lens, and share their thoughts on clear-eyed political actions that practitioners, researchers, educators, and schools of social works can take if they truly intend to reach for an abolitionist horizon. Our speaker tonight, Dr. Sarantakos' current research focuses on contributing to the advancement of community-based approaches to harm and need, as well as exploring the future of social change work. They are questioning how the profession of social work can directly and effectively connect to the work of large-scale social movements and advance their aims, and developing ideas for how social work education can be altered to more readily prepare students to support social movements, not only in moments of social upheaval, but in preparation for them. This inquiry also includes thinking through how practitioners and social service organizations can deprofessionalize and leverage their positions and resources to propel progress. Dr. Sarantakos co-created and co-facilitates the Abolitionist Social Change Collective, which provides a virtual space for people engaged in all forms of unpaid and paid social welfare and social change work to build a community of people who exchange ideas and build abolition-focused collaborations, advance non-carceral approaches to harm, accountability, and well-being, and work towards a more solidarity-focused form of social change work. Along with teaching the foundation course, Integrated Social Work Practice for Social Justice, Dr. Sarantakos teaches an introduction to PIC, Prison Industrial Complex Abolition course for MSW students at the University of Denver. We are honored to have them speak with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarantakos.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be sharing space with all of you tonight. I want to thank everyone at BU School of Social Work for having me. I want to thank Greer Hamilton in particular for inviting me to participate in this speaker series. It's a real honor to be here. There are two quick things I want to say actually before I dive into the presentation. And they're both related to my positionality to the topic of prison industrial complex abolition and white professionalized social change work. First, I want to say that I'm a white, queer, non-binary person who's been directly impacted by the PIC in a number of ways, and that my relationship to PIC abolition is not an intellectual one, but a material one. And abolitionist praxis has been a light for me in what's been really a very dark, heavy world. It's helped me make sense of the things that I've experienced, helped me clarify my own political commitments, and shaped how I move and care in the world. The second thing I want to note is that I'll be focusing my discussion on white professionalized social change work. And I say that because in Dr. Joyce Bell's book, The Black Power Movement in American Social Work, there's a moment where she recalls a conversation with Dr. Jay Chun, who was the second president of the National Association of Black Social Workers. And he argued against the term mainstream social work. He encouraged people in the field to call it what it is, which is white social work. And I think as we continue to talk about uprooting our field and building something better with a more radical vision, we really need to be explicit about the vein of social change work that necessitates this transformation. And that is white professionalized social change work. It's the lineage that's been legitimized by people in power and has caused the most immense harm. And so this is the social work I'll be discussing today. And as a white worker in this field, I see it as my ethical obligation to uproot this form of social change work. So let's go ahead and dive in, I guess. So my talk, before I pull up my slides, I'll just say real quick about the agenda. My talk today has three main sections. I'll first lay the foundation for prison industrial complex abolition. I'll then bring us into the realm of white professionalized social change work as it currently stands, and then problematize our values through a PIC abolitionist framework. And then I'm going to end, as Noor said, with sharing some ideas for how we can begin to move toward the abolitionist horizon within our paid social change work positions. Okay, here we go. I see Noor laughing. It's floating head time, y'all. If you're not familiar with it, this is what we're doing. So I'll be in the corner of all the slides. So first things first, you will notice that I say prison industrial complex abolition and not prison or jail abolition. And that's intentional. That's because I want to be clear about when I'm talking about the work of abolition, I'm talking about a much larger project that extends far beyond the destruction of prisons and jails. And to ground us all in an understanding of the PIC, I'm going to use this tool created by Dr. Melissa Birch, who organizes with critical resistance. So the PIC isn't a thing. It's a set of relationships among people across a multitude of sectors who all have a vested interest in maintaining our carceral state. So here in this diagram, we see a visual depiction of the PIC, and of course it's not exhaustive, but it helps us understand these complex relationships. And we start at the bottom of the diagram, we move our way up. So if we start at the bottom, we see the PIC is driven by the interests of people like politicians, investors, suppliers of goods and services, prison guard unions, and they use the tools of surveillance, borders, media, databases, policing, courts, as a response to addiction, unemployment, interpersonal violence, houselessness, to eliminate unwanted populations, uphold dominant norms, squash resistance. And the people who are targeted are poor people, political dissenters, gender nonconforming people, some immigrants. And the PIC is upheld by white supremacy, racial capitalism, settler colonialism, patriarchy, and it produces poverty, violence, environmental degradation, ill health, and death, right? And so when we talk about PIC abolition, we're talking about disrupting these relationships and practices, which in fact undergird the whole project of this nation state of the United States, and building entirely new ways of relating to and caring for one another. So I wanted to make sure we have a grounding of what I mean by PIC. And when we discuss the contemporary PIC abolition movement, I think it's incredibly important to note that it stands on the shoulders of Du Bois's abolition democracy. And this is an idea he discussed at great length in his work, Black Reconstruction. The contemporary movement also, diverges from this idea, and we'll get to that in a moment. But in Black Reconstruction, Du Bois said, the abolition of slavery meant not simply abolition of legal ownership of the slave. It meant the uplift of slaves and their eventual incorporation into the body civil, politic, and social of the United States. In Black Reconstruction and much of Du Bois's work, right, he makes it super clear that the project of abolition can't have a singular focus on the negative project of abolishing chattel slavery. It also had to be committed to the positive project of building a world where Black people are cared for, loved, and have what they need to thrive. And there's so much, this could be its own presentation, right? There's so much to study and engage with and discuss around Du Bois's idea of abolition democracy, and we don't have time for a deep dive on this, but one thing I want to extract from this work is that, as a point of divergence really, is that abolition in the truest sense wants so much more than the incorporation that Du Bois talks about here. Being incorporated into, or quote unquote recognized in a rotten system is not liberation. It's not care. And what abolition ultimately demands is more than recognition and incorporation. And so while I think it's really imperative that we honor the lineage of thought here, how Du Bois's work is part of the contemporary abolitionist movement's root system, I also want to push us beyond this particular understanding of abolition. And to push us to a fuller, more radical understanding of abolition, I'll use the words of Stephen O'Harney and Fred Moten in the Undercommons Fugitive Planning and Black Study. This work focuses on the university as the main site of struggle, but these ideas and arguments are translatable across infrastructures. And in the Undercommons, Harney and Moten said, what is, so to speak, the object of abolition? Not so much the abolition of prisons, but the abolition of a society that could have prisons, that could have slavery, that could have the wage. And therefore not abolition as the elimination of anything, but abolition as the founding of a new society. And what Harney and Moten are calling for in their work is it's not a strategy for Black students to be recognized by and incorporated into the rotten, racist, patriarchal, able-bodied, cisgender infrastructures that make up the United States, but rather to refuse them altogether and to build something new. And like I said, the focus of this particular work is the university, and they talk about Black students learning how to be in the university, but not of it, being subversive in university spaces. And I want to, offer this quote by historian Robin Kelly, who talked about Harney and Moten's work in Black Study, Black Struggle, an incredible essay that he wrote. And he talks about how the Undercommons is building a fugitive network where a commitment to abolition and collectivity prevails over a university culture bent on creating socially isolated individuals whose academic skepticism and claims of objectivity leave the world as it is intact. And so PIC abolition is built on the Black radical tradition of refusal and creation, the planting and nurturing of something entirely new. And I think this is a framework that we need to hold and engage with in the context that we're in as social change workers. PIC abolition is ultimately about seeing, the priorities and relationships that shape our world that we're told are good and inevitable, and refusing them and committing ourselves to building an entirely different way forward. And so the last thing I'll say to ground us in PIC abolition is this, that if we are going to engage in this project of building an entirely new world, everything has to change. And Ruth Wilson Gilmore says, at the end of the day, abolition has got to be green, but that means it also has to be red. And if it's going to be red, that means it's international by definition. And I think this quote can help us understand, it certainly helps me understand the structural analysis and work abolition calls us to commit to. She says that the work of abolition must be green, meaning that it must care for the natural world and our finite resources. We have to center the health and longevity of the planet. And for the work to center the natural world, it has to be red or socialist. There is no real sustainable care for the planet or each other under the system of racial capitalism, which consistently puts profits before people and death before life. And then if we understand the necessity of a political structure based in solidarity, that solidarity cannot be convenient or limited in its scope. It must be deep and it has to cross without borders. And so it's international by definition. And so abolition is therefore a radical project, radical meaning grasping things by the root. And if we think about abolition in relation to white professionalized social change work, the two couldn't be further from each other. Ruth Wilson Gilmore reminds us to pay attention to instances of capitalism saving capitalism from capitalism. And I think white professionalized social change work is one of these instances. Janet Finn, among many other scholars of social work history like Aaron Reich, have discussed that white professionalized social change work in many ways was sparked to manage the wreckage of racial capitalism. The goal of this form of social change work has never been to uproot the US's problematic foundation and build something anew. It was rather to stay in alignment with the status quo, promulgate the profession, and increase the profession's power and legitimacy. And I won't spend too much more time on this because I hope we know this, right? And so we're gonna talk about building something new. And we can see as we continue to really kind of unpack white professionalized social change work and really understand and problematize it, we can see the misalignment between our stated values, if we're honest, I think, about where our loyalties have been and the political commitments we've upheld and continue to uphold. Across the next 3 slides, I'm going to do this reflective work and problematize our 6 stated social work values from the perspective of an abolitionist politic. And Infused in these reflections are some of the political commitments, the work and refusals that I think an abolitionist praxis demands. The first two values that we have listed here from our code of ethics are service and social justice. So social workers' primary goal is to help people in need, address social problems, and challenge social injustice, right? I read these values from an abolitionist perspective, and I think if we're not working against the structural drivers of need, social justice, social problems, and injustice, that is racial capitalism, settler colonialism, and white supremacy, we're offering band-aids to people in a burning house. And when I consider most of the labor that white professionalized social change work has done historically and continues to do presently, it's most certainly not working against the structural drivers of need, social problems, and injustice, in my opinion. The best case scenario, I think, is that we make the present more survivable for people. But so much of our work causes harm. We problematize people. We develop micro-level interventions that tell people who have been abandoned and harmed by the state that if they worked on themselves in particular ways, their circumstances might change. We offer band-aids and counseling to people in a burning house while doing very little about the fire and the conditions that created the fire in the first place. And I want to be super clear that making the present more survivable is necessary. It's important work. For people to ultimately thrive, they have to survive first. But white professionalized social work, I think, offers very little in terms of changing the political and social conditions that lead to harm and need in the first place. You also see I have this extra little note here at the bottom with an asterisk that says, we're in the burning house too. And we all don't have similar experiences with the state by any means or harm generally, but we're all doomed living under the weather of racial capitalism, settler colonialism, and white supremacy. And too many white folks don't fully recognize that we're all in the burning house together, and that professionalized social change workers thinking of ourselves as separate from the individuals, families, and communities we work with is actually anti-solidarity work. And it's precisely how the state wants us to function. Moving on, I look at the next two values listed in our code of ethics. Social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of the person. We also recognize the central importance of human relationships. And I think if as a field, we support policing, caging, the family regulation system, and the separation of families, we do not, in fact, respect the inherent dignity and worth of the person, nor do we center human relationships. The values are not written as though they're conditional. It doesn't say we respect the inherent dignity and worth of people who, so-and-so, or we recognize the central importance of some human relationships. That's not how our values are written. So then how do we actually claim that we unconditionally hold these values if we support putting some human beings in cages? If we support surveilling and separating Black, brown, Indigenous, queer, poor families who've experienced intergenerational organized abandonment? And my, kind of last little reminder here at the bottom is that we're not separate from the human connections we break through our work. We're not separate from the human connections we break through our work. If we look at social change work through the lens of community and solidarity, we begin to understand that what happens to our neighbors and community members matters to all of us. It should matter to all of us. Our survival and our ability to thrive is actually wholly based in our understanding of and commitment to our collectivity. And lastly, if we look at our value of competence, social workers practice within their areas of competence and develop and enhance our professional expertise. An abolitionist framework guides us toward the idea that competency is actually insufficient. We must keep learning, unlearning, and embrace knowledge that challenges our personal understanding of and experience with the world. I think we need to be committed to learning, of course, but also committed to labor that shifts things materially in real ways. Not saying and performing social justice, but actually doing it and changing the terrain, putting ourselves on the line, putting ourselves in opposition to power. And this quote here at the end by Freire, those who authentically commit themselves to the people must re-examine themselves constantly. I think this is one of the most important commitments we need to make as social change workers, and work that white social change workers in particular need to do. If we're truly for the people, we must be committed to building a better self constantly. And I'll end this section by saying that to me, our stated values are nothing more than platitudes. To me, they embody how white professionalized social change work has functioned since it started, which is blandly and uncritically. Okay, so we're about to jump in the last section here. But before we do, please take a moment to look at this beautiful art by the artist Molly Costello. And I want to just take a moment to explain how the title of the talk will be reflected in what I offer next. I named this talk Nearing the Abolitionist Horizon and not Social Workers Becoming Abolitionists or Abolitionist Social Work for a reason. I think US social work discourses picked up the language of abolition more so in the past year than any other time, as Nora mentioned. We've got some schools of social work like the one I'm a part of, organizing panels to discuss its merits, connection to social work, incorporating the philosophy and organizing strategy into their curricula. I teach a PIC abolition course for my master's students. And these discussions, actions, they all have the potential to yield, I think, really powerful shifts within the field. I also think the focused attention on abolitionism within the profession and academy presents complications and limitations. From my perspective, I think social work has engaged in a somewhat fast-paced uplifting of abolitionism without intentional, rigorous study, and in some ways relegated it to a kind of persona and performance in the field. And what I want to take the time to say before we get into this next section is that PIC abolition is not an exclusive club. It's not an identity. It's not an outcome. It's a deep study and a practice. And I think it's extremely important for professionalized social workers to think less about the task of identifying as an abolitionist and more about what abolition calls us to be committed to. What is the work that's being asked of us in this framework, in this theory of change? And I love the phrase abolitionist horizon because it implies a continued journey, a constant reach for something better, more beautiful, more righteous, not a finite place. So for the last section of the presentation, I really would like for all of us to put aside the idea of becoming an abolitionist and even building a quote unquote abolitionist social work and think about the commitments and work PIC abolition calls us to do. The focus is the work, not the label. So for the next 2 slides, I'm going to discuss some of the ways I think that those of us who labor in professionalized social change work can act to shift our commitment from the survival of the profession to actual radical change. And I've broken these actions into 2 categories. The first is reaching within ourselves for the abolitionist horizon. And the second is reaching within our contexts for the abolitionist horizon. And we'll start within ourselves first. And to break down my ideas in this category, I've used some of my favorite quotes. And if any of my students are watching, they've seen these quotes way too many times, but I'm sorry, you're going to see them again. The first quote is by artist and organizer Morgan Bassicus. And they say, the very systems we are working to dismantle live inside of us. And I think or hope we all know that the distorted values and practices of racial capitalism, settler colonialism, and white supremacy are deep within us, to different extents, of course. Distorted ideas about who's deserving, who's undeserving, about productivity, labor, rest, right? Acceptable, unacceptable forms of resistance and refusal. And carceral logics are super seductive. They make us feel really righteous. We like to say that person over there that did that thing that I would never do. They're bad and I'm good, right? And we have to fight all of this corrosive default programming within ourselves because the institutions and structures around us do not show us how to truly care for one another. We need to unlearn all these things that we've been force-fed and learn a whole new way of being. The second quote is, "What are you pretending not to know today?" by Toni Cade Bambara. And this question is from Bambara's piece, The Education of a Storyteller. And she talks about in this piece an elder who she called grandmother, but who wasn't her kin exactly, asking her this question. And her grandmother would ask her this question in moments when Bambara was, quote, playing like she wasn't intelligent. And it's this question I've been thinking about over and over in my mind, honestly, quite a bit, especially over the last few years. This is a question I think white people in particular need to be asking themselves. But I do think it's one that we all could benefit from ruminating on. I think about, some of this is what Norm mentioned when she kicked off today's talk, is that I think about how many of us are pretending not to know that the US is a nation state deeply committed to death and destruction. We're 3 years into a pandemic, and we've seen no concerted effort from people in power to minimize infection, save lives. The response of racial capitalism is always profits before people, death before life. After one of the most violent, deadly years of police killings on record, Biden's response was to increase the overall budget for policing. Again, death before life. We have decades of data showing that we're heading toward climate collapse. And what we've been witnessing isn't inaction, but a forging ahead toward that destruction. People in power acted. They chose death before life time and time and time again. And so what does it mean to step into what we've maybe been pretending not to know? To embrace it and allow those truths to redirect our politics and actions. And the last quote I have here is from the anarchist anthropologist David Graeber. And he says, the ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it is something that we make and could just as easily make differently. And this quote, I think it sounds simple to wrap our minds around, but I don't think it is. Erica Miners says, liberation under oppression is unthinkable by design. We've been programmed to believe that this hellscape, I'll be frank, is as good as it's going to get, right? That the best we can do is just kind of tinker at the margins. And people in power are depending on us to remain in this state of mind. We have to refuse this. We have to believe that something better can exist. The war against our imagination by people in power is so severe and it's so unrelenting. And we really have to fight for our ability to imagine and build from that imagination. And so I think the first step toward a radical politic, whether we identify it as abolitionist or not, is transforming ourselves, as Grace Lee Boggs said. And I offer these 3 quotes as a way that I think we can approach this deeply complicated personal work, right? First, we have to witness the manifestations of these toxic systems within ourselves and commit to breaking them down. Then we have to be real about what we know and what the world tells us is true time and time again. And then we have to fight to preserve and grow our imaginations together. Okay, and now I'll chat about some ways I think we can be reaching for the abolitionist horizon within our different paid labor contexts, and those might be practice, research, and or teaching. The first is refusing norms and metrics that problematize people and cause harm, and working to change them. A key norm I'm thinking of here, and I know that it's probably on the minds of many people here today, is mandatory reporting. How can we say that we actually value people's inherent dignity and worth, recognize the central importance of human relationships, help people in need, so on and so forth, if we continue to teach students that they should pull a lever that we know causes irreparable harm, and that we continue to pull that lever ourselves. Mandatory reporting is a mechanism of the carceral state that relies on social change workers to be, frankly, loyal foot soldiers, right, to the state, and to respond to harm and need with harm, not care. And we're a cog in the machine that helps perpetuate violence. And luckily, I want to shout out, there's a really strong movement afoot to move away from mandatory reporting. We have Shannon Perez Darby's Mandatory Reporting is Not Neutral resource. The students at Columbia School of Social Work created the mandated supporting resource. And I can offer these links to folks here at BU and have them on the page perhaps, and share them with folks. When I think about other norms, right, some other examples are eligibility criteria and programs that exclude people with criminal histories. And then if we take it to the academy, co-signing the harmful processes of university disability services that put the onus on students to achieve certain, quote unquote, official statuses so that we can their learning needs can be acknowledged and met. That's not accessibility, right? Using punitive tactics in the classroom, like deducting points, lowering folks' grade for needing more time or not being able to attend class. We need to think critically about the norms in our context and ask ourselves, is this actually centering care? Am I doing the dirty, violent work of the state by upholding this norm? And then rules that maintain inequities, maintain that violence, they have to be broken. They absolutely have to be broken, and we have to be organizing against them. And as a faculty member who researches and writes about the legal punishment system, I also think about the problematic metrics that researchers within my area choose to uphold. Things like recidivism and criminogenic risk. These metrics problematize people and are completely void of a structural analysis. How can we uplift a measure like recidivism that talks about how people are cycling back into the system after they've been free, that deliberately has no consideration for hypercriminalization, the criminalization of social problems and public health issues, the police's laser focus on targeting Black, brown, indigenous, queer, trans, poor, disabled, undocumented people? We should be talking about something like recriminalization or some different structurally focused concept, not recidivism. And criminogenic risk, right, which rates people across a number of static and dynamic categories to decide a person's quote unquote level of risk. We have to reject these metrics wholesale, refuse them. We have to demand and support work that humanizes and cares for people. This takes me to the next bulleted approach, which is centering care, collaboration, and collectivity, not individualism, competition, and recognition. The state really wants us to stay siloed. It wants us to fight with each other over scraps, whether that's funding or some other resource that we're told is scarce. In all contexts that we're in, we should be finding ways to deepen our connection and commitment to each other. How can we come together, build together, organize together, amplify each other's work? Next, I think we need to be thinking about how we can leverage our personal, institutional, and organizational resources to support organizers and already existing movements. As someone who's organized quite a bit and been on the ground, right? Organizers on the ground need space. It's expensive to get space. They need access to computers, printers, they need money, they need volunteers. Agencies and schools of social work could open their doors in important ways to offer these things. Maybe clinicians can provide free or extremely low-cost mental health care to organizers. They can run groups for organizers experiencing burnout to keep them healthy and to provide support. We need to stop thinking in hierarchical ways and ask ourselves, what can I offer my community to help us get closer to a world where we all thrive? What do I have access to that others need? Next, I think we need to expand what we think of as the sites of struggle. And, something I tell my students all the time that I think is really hard to hear when you're in a social work program is that freedom work is not paid work, period. Freedom work is not paid work. So agencies, institutions, including my own, the one that I'm at, people in power, they'll never pay us to do truly transformative work that aims to upend the status quo and threatens our existence. We need to be doing work outside of these spaces, applying pressure to our paid positions through outside and inside organizing. We need to be teaching our students about, the truth about the nonprofit industrial complex in the academy, and how work in these sectors has severe intentional limitations. We can be doing good work in these spaces, but they have severe intentional limitations. We need to be challenging the idea that we can completely change systems from the inside. Mariam Kaba, her response to that notion is, she says, when someone tells her, oh, I'm going to change so-and-so system from the inside, she asks, who are your people on the outside? Meaning, are you connected to people in the community who experience the harm of the system you work in? Are you listening to their experiences, supporting the larger organizing efforts that may be in direct contradiction with the paid work that you do? Are you doing that? Who are your people on the outside? The revolution will not be funded, and it also won't be started or won within the agencies and institutions who are all interested in maintaining their survival. the bigger, more important work is outside of these spaces. And the last thing that I'll offer is the importance of refusing the commodification of radicalism and committing to what Erica Miners calls slow work in always urgent times. Part of what I've witnessed, and I'm wrestling with all of these things in this presentation, so I can't wait to talk with all of you. I'm especially wrestling with the last one. Part of what I've witnessed over the last several years as social work has quickly taken up the language of abolition is the commodification of it. It's gaining in popularity in some ways. Students are interested in learning more. And the natural impulse of the academy is to ask, how can I package this and sell it to students? And those of us who are studied, practiced, and committed to a radical politic need to help others understand that this is not the way. Dr. Joy James reminds us to be very wary of things that wind up on the menu of the academy. We have to hold the line and help people understand that PIC abolition, transformative justice, decolonization, these are not career tracks. They're a way of being, they're a way of life, they're a daily unwavering political commitments, right? So we need to instead be focused on the slow, steady, behind the scenes work of approaching everything we do from these radical lenses. All curricula, all policies, everything. And so with that, I will end and just say thank you so much for inviting me, for engaging in this conversation we're about to have. This is a collective process, and so I can't wait to just talk with all of you and learn from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarantakos, for that. And thank you also for pulling in so many other people, activists, advocates, organizers, scholars, thinkers in all of your slides. I really enjoyed these quotes that you've pulled from these really important works. And I will be spending some time reflecting today on what I am pretending to not know. I would like to introduce our first reflector, Orion Ohala. Orion uses they, them pronouns and is a first-year Master of Social Work student with a clinical concentration at Boston University School of Social Work. Orion received their Bachelor of Arts degrees in English and Philosophy at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and uses their background in the humanities to explore individualized care opportunities that focus on psychological and material narratives, systems, and ideologies that shape each person's life. Orion served as a coordinator for residential education at the University of California, Santa Cruz for 3 years prior to their Master of Social Work program, where their set of colleges incorporated themes of social justice and community and international and global perspectives in developing residential curriculums where students could learn and engage in community responsive living practices during their residential experiences. Orion hopes to continue to find pathways and communities to engage in intercultural and abolitionist praxis.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. And thank you so much to both Noor, our organizers, and Dr. Sarantakos. Today, I heard so many great things. I wish we could have this conversation for hours. From your foundational work in organizing our framework today on the prison industrial complex and how abolition work really is imagining this multi-layered, systematic, and structural, interconnected and relational network of things that need to be abolished, changed, rebuilt, or destroyed completely. And I'm thinking about so much of your, like Noor mentioned, so much of this was rooted in the Black radical tradition and Black political imaginaries that a lot of Black philosophers and social workers have been thinking about for centuries. I have really appreciated that you've kind of called out our social work values and our stated ethics and named that we are not currently in our white mainstream professionalized social change work adhering to those values in the ways that we ought to be if we're doing real care work. I think what I'm left with at your last slide, it was a lot of different ways that we could think about how do we use different resources, different interventions to engage in this abolitionist horizon. So we can ask ourselves the questions, so we can engage in the practice, so we can do the work. And I'm thinking also about Dr. Balkan Martinez's work in liberation health and the liberation health model, and this idea of rescuing the historical memory of change. And I think for a number of us, as we're thinking about how we engage in abolition work, how do we care and collectively engage in this abolition praxis? I think a lot of us would really benefit from any examples that you may have of things that give you hope, that give you joy when you think about abolitionist praxis, things that have been done in the past that help you to do your work every day and help to teach other individuals how to do this work.
All right, and thank you so much for that. Deeply thoughtful reflection and question. Oh, there's so much to be hopeful about, right? I have bad days. I have really bad days, right? I'm human, but there's so much to be hopeful about. And I think not only is it just kind of reaching back to history to see just what we're standing on the shoulders of, which is so many incredible, powerful movements, but right now, right? And so much of what I bring into my PIC abolition course and all the courses I teach, because I teach them all from an abolitionist framework, is to show examples to students of how abolition is happening right now. And people have been making it so for decades, right? Black, brown, indigenous communities, queer communities, trans communities have been engaging in mutual aid work, subversive networks, all types of abolitionist type radical work for decades because they've had to for their own survival, because they've been abandoned, intentionally abandoned by the state. And there's beautiful organizing happening everywhere across all communities in the United States. And that's part of what I hope that we can understand and tap into and uplift, to show that I think one of the things that's been problematic about social work is that we want to be in the front, right? We want to be highlighted, right? How can social work take the lead? We shouldn't be taking the lead, right? We just show up. We just show up and offer what we can to things that are already happening, and let community members and those that have been abandoned by the state intergenerationally to lead the way, and we bring our skill set to the table. And so plugging into all of those different things, and there's, I can share some resources with Noor and Greer and the BU community about, there's an abolitionist map where you can type in your location and find out some abolitionist hubs where you're at. You can plug in, right? We don't have to recreate the wheel. In some ways we do. We have to do like a lot of collective thought work together and thinking about new things, but a lot of it is plugging in. Just plugging in and bringing what we can to the table, because there's so much beauty and so much organizing happening already, and we just have to show up. And I'll quote Malcolm X, right? It's not that we're outnumbered, it's that we're out-organized. We are severely out-organized, and we just need to pull it together. I hope that addressed a little bit of what you asked.
Thank you, Dr. Sarantakos. Thank you, Orion, for that reflection. Our second reflector is Maya Milic-Strikai. Maya is a social worker in the Boston area. They're an adjunct lecturer at Boston University School of Social Work and an alum for the program. They're currently working on a project with the City School and Boston Liberation Health to facilitate the community-led design process of a mental health crisis response program in Boston that does not involve law enforcement. They're also engaged in local abolitionist organizing with currently incarcerated folks, including organizing around medical and mental health neglect and abuse within prisons.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I just have so many thoughts like running around my head and so many reflections. And I would love to just like have many more hours to sort of spend together. But yeah, just to sort of try and sum up some of what's going on in my head, I just like really love your like directness and honesty about like the social work field and like the institutions and social work, institutions, and such as like naming our values as platitudes currently. Just the language that you're using is so powerful. And even just sort of starting in your bio to like learn that you teach a course on PIC abolition is amazing. And just thinking about like how much that would have meant as like a student to be able to participate in that course, and just like thinking about how can we create something like that here at BU, it would be amazing. And yeah, one thing that I'm sort of going to take away is just sort of this language that you used about sort of shifting from mainstream social work to like white professionalized social change work. I found that like shift like really powerful, and just like being really explicit about like race and privilege and how that plays such a deep role in our field. And then also the phrase that you used of like capitalism, saving capitalism from capitalism, and like that overlap is just like so powerful to think about. But yeah, for a question, I have a lot going on in my head. I guess one thing I'd love to hear you talk more about is you started mentioning sort of mandated reporting and like the family and regulation system and quote unquote child welfare, which it isn't, as we all, that's not really what it is. And I'm just sort of wondering your thoughts about like how, as the system is currently, like what are your thoughts on like how do we navigate this sort of mandate that we're supposed to report? How do we navigate that while also working towards actually abolishing this system of this family regulation system?
Yeah, Maya, thank you so much for all those reflections, the question. It's complicated. I think, I don't know if Greer can pull it up and put it in the chat, but Shannon Perez-Darby's mandatory reporting is not neutral resource is really helpful because it provides a framework for understanding that we're kind of told, and this is like a key piece of PIC abolition, is that we have whole systems built on these extreme cases, including the family policing system, right? When in reality, what we know is that that's actually not really the majority of the cases that we see through family policing, through the legal punishment system. That's not what's happening. And so we have whole systems built in this mythology around, right, that it's like all these children being abused, right, and abused in particular ways and harsh ways, when it's really neglect. It's poverty. These are policy choices. We've chosen not to care for people and support people. And so it is deeply complicated. And I understand that people's, we do paid work because we have to pay rent and make a living under racial capitalism. And most of us are not independently wealthy, right? And so a lot of us can't just lose our jobs. And mandatory reporting is tied to a lot of positions within social change work. But if we think about a resource like Shannon Perez-Darby created, it helps us understand, well, what are the other options? How can we go about engaging in our agencies, talking about with this particular case, and bringing up to our supervisors, to our colleagues in this particular case, hey, look, I don't think that we should pull this lever, and here's why. And here are some examples of what I think we can do instead. And we can pool these resources like the mandated supporting and these other things that have been produced to think about what are the other levers that we can pull to actually support families and help them. The other thing I think about is that, what does it mean to be a profession that is creating a pipeline to these carceral institutions? And so I'm always thinking of the long game as an abolitionist, and that's what abolition is, right? It is about life and rehearsal and doing it right now, as Ruth Wilson Gilmore says, but also that long game. And so we have to stop telling students, yes, go work for family policing. Yes, go work with ICE. Yes, go work with, we have to stop, full stop being a pipeline for these carceral institutions that perpetuate violence and harm. And then I think we start, so once we cut off that pipeline and we start to think really differently and engage differently with mandated reporting and start to kind of pull other levers that actually center care and support, I think we make our way out of this mess. But it's a long game, I think.
Thank you, Maya, for your reflection, and Dr. Sarantakos. Our last reflection is from Dr. Margaret Lombe. She is an expert in social work and global health equity and a member of the macro practice department at the Boston University School of Social Work. And in addition to her professorship, is faculty director for the Bridge program, BUSSW's innovative pre-MSW program for immigrants and refugees designed to promote access and equity in graduate social work education. Her research focuses on advancing the well-being of marginalized communities, seeking to impact upstream interventions or systems level change by paying close attention to social and economic justice, empowerment, and participatory democracy. Dr. Lombe's work also addresses a number of important social issues domestically and globally, including research on the stigmatization of people suffering from HIV/AIDS, food insecurity, and housing adversity in Boston and in African countries.
Thank you so much. Sophia, if I may, you give us the power, you give us permission, you also give us a language to start talking about the abolitionist of white professional social change work. Your discussion with us this evening reflects the wisdom that is embodied in your name. And I'm so grateful to be part of the group that is reflecting to your conversation with us. Like the previous speakers, I'm not even sure where I'm going to begin from in terms of my reflections. I have so many things that I want to say, but I'd like to limit my reflection narrowly to 2 points that you made that touched me. One of the points that you made was about the abolitionist of white professionalized social work. And thinking about this, I look back at my training as a master's student in social work, as a doctoral student in social work, tells me we're training you for impact. And I'm sitting here wondering, what impact? Impact for whom? And then again, when I engage in work around racism and other isms, I'm told, call in, don't call out, call in. Calling in for whom? When everything in me is screaming, call out and shut up. The models tell me, call in. When I don't have the energy, when I don't even have the energy to cry out, the models tell me, call in. I thank you for giving us the language to think about these things, thinking at the profession of social work itself, looking at the training of our students, their values, their agendas, the curriculum that we transmit to our students reflect a savior mentality type of approach. This savior mentality might be good for white professionalized social change work, but it's not good for communities and people who look like me, and women specifically, because we rob these people, we rob this community, the agency and the capacity to influence change in their favor. Another aspect of your talk that I want to reflect on is your call for engagement with the I don't want to mess this up, with understanding the abolitionist horizon. I feel like this is important because if we go into this work lightly, we'll miss a great opportunity, which is going to be significant for social work. I appreciate the fact that you've called us to be reflective as we engage with this model. And I'd like to leave you with a question. And again, I'm thinking you and myself, Dawn, and a few others, we are parts of educators. And like you've started bringing in a different angle to education, which is empowering and freeing. But then again, if we look at traditional social work, like, how do we begin to have that conversation with traditional social work, with ourselves, in a way that is sympathetic and attentive? So, and I hate to say this, so we can call in and not always call out. Thank you.
Dr. Lombe, thank you so much. What an incredible reflection. Also, thank you for that call out to my name. My father would be proud to hear you say that. That was a really beautiful, thoughtful reflection. Oh, so much. I wanna honor what you just said, because it was so beautiful, that question of, and I didn't get to say it because 30 minutes goes fast, but PIC abolition in its truest, most beautiful sense is an invitation. It's an invitation. And that's why I talked about, I had that kind of pause to remind us that, it's not for those of us to first learn about it and then get self-righteous and say, well, I'm radical now and you all need to get caught up and you're all making mistakes, right? It's an invitation to bring people in and say, what have you been pretending not to know? What have we been screwing up together collectively? How can we engage in this work and be better? And I know that, right, there are people who don't enter these conversations with good faith. There are people that try to stall and squash these conversations entirely, and how we deal with them has got to be entirely different. To your point about, we should be calling them out, and we should be confronting that kind of power and that type of those types of barriers. But for folks who are trying to figure it out, it needs to be an invitation to bring them in to learn. And that's at the root of abolition, is political education, sitting together, reading together, organizing together, asking big questions together, looking at our curricula as educators and saying, what story are we telling here? And like you said, for whom is it good for? What type of impact are we doing here? If any impact at all? And sitting around and asking these questions. And I think, that's work that, in my department as a new faculty member, I think we're trying to do, but it's incredibly messy. It's super messy, and it's extremely difficult because people are in different places, different worldviews. And while there does need to be, I think, some patience with each other, we're not waiting for liberation. You get on board and you engage in good faith and try to push yourself and learn, or move out of the way, because that's what we're going for. And so it's a two-way street. And I tell my students that all the time, of like, and I just, the last thing I'll say, and maybe I'm rambling a bit now, I hope I'm not, but one thing I encounter a lot as being within the abolitionist movement as long as I have, is that people love to dump these questions on you without having done any research, right? They won't look up abolition, they won't look at anything, but they'll be like, well, what about this? Well, what about the rapists and the murderers? And what do we build? And what do we have instead, right? And I tell people, why don't you go read some things and then come back? I mean, seriously, I'm serious. Come back, go read, come back, and have some pointed questions from me. Because it is a two-way street. You want a better world, I want a better world. You go read about it too, and then you can come back and we'll talk about it and we'll start building together. But it's not on the onus of people who have been minoritized, oppressed, abandoned by the state to have to answer all of these questions. You have to go do that work. And when you come back in good faith and you show that you've done that work and you're willing to commit to it, let's talk. And a lot of people don't like that approach. I like that approach. So thank you so much for those reflections and questions, Dr. Lombe.
Thank you, Dr. Lombe and Dr. Sarantakos. We'll now open the floor to questions from the audience. Feel free to unmute and ask a question. Okay, seeing that there are no questions from the audience, we can close. So we just want to thank everyone for coming. Our wonderful speaker, Dr. Sophia Sarantakos, our insightful reflectors, Orion Ohala, Maya, Dr. Margaret Lombe, and our wonderful behind the scenes PhD student doing all the support, and my colleague and my friend, Greer Hamilton. One more reminder that if you are getting CEUs, you must complete the form using the link that we will put in the chat. And I will, in the movement, we like to say that the path to justice is more like a marathon and not a sprint. We hope that you all will take good care of yourselves, because we all need all of you to imagine and create our new world. We hope you have a very, very good summer, and we hope to see you next year at our September 29th, 2022 ENI speakers event, when Dr. Alan Detlef, Dean at the University of Houston School of Social Work, will present his work. Thank you again so much, everyone, and onward in the struggle for justice and liberation. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for having me.